Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the M365 Voice. My name is Sarah Hazy.
And I am Mike Honorani.
And I'm Antonio Mayo.
And we're thrilled to be here today. And if you've tuned into our last several episodes, we've had an array of guests. And we're back to just the three of us. I'm not sure for how long, but it feels new and different to be back to just the three of us for an episode.
It does.
Yeah, I think we'll have some guests again soon, but it is fun sometimes just for the three of us to talk about a topic.
It is. And this topic, so for all of you that before we record, we usually have some time to catch up. And when we have guests, we kind of know what we're going to be talking about. And many of our episodes, we pull a question out of a jar. But today, before we started recording, we were actually talking about new news in the M365 space and things that we've heard about that we're excited about. And we chose one of those to talk about as the topic for today. So if any of you have not heard yet, we literally have had in the past few weeks some interesting news coming from Microsoft that, and the title of it is really Creating Conditions for Inclusion, and it's introducing pronouns into Microsoft 365. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about what that looks like, what we think about it, and maybe implications of it for organizations.
Yeah, what I like about it before we get into the actual topic is how Microsoft is looking at the industry and the community and trying to offer this small piece of technologies that to accommodate everyone in this community and to accommodate everyone that is working with this technology and be inclusive and diverse with everyone. It's always good to see big tech companies just doing little things that would make things a happier place for some of us.
And Sarah, I think you said like before we started, Microsoft is typically a leader in this space. And I think this is a good example of that. Like I know, I don't know if we've said on the podcast before, I have two daughters. My older daughter is a huge champion of people's pronouns. If I get any of her friends' pronouns wrong accidentally, she's on me without a drop of a hat, without missing a beat. She's on me. No, it's this. I'm like, okay, sorry. So it's become really important to a lot of people what their pronouns are, letting people choose their pronouns and having people respect them. And I think this feature helps to really emphasize that and lets people easily let everyone else know what pronouns I prefer.
It is a very big thing, because I think our pronouns define so much about who we are. And I think we have a greater level of visibility into that than ever before. And I think that and preferred names, and being someone who's, not that we're going to share that on this call, but being someone who goes by a name that is not the same as her legal first name, I'm very sensitive to addressing people by the names that they choose to want to be addressed by rather than what you think. So I love to take the time in meetings to confirm with people their pronouns and their preferred names of what they want to be called, because everyone deserves that dignity. And so I love that Microsoft is releasing this change because I think it really furthers that human dignity, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and if you look back a few years ago, and I got caught up a few times by calling someone with the wrong name or the wrong pronoun, and you feel really bad about it because you did not know. And back in the days, it was not a common thing to do, to ask or to know, or if it's displayed beside their names or not. So they're really happy about that.
Yeah, it means a lot to a lot of people.
It does mean a lot. So maybe we should, before we dive into further discussions, kind of set the stage around what this looks like. So we will put maybe Mike, adding a little pressure to you when you publish this episode. I know that there is a short URL that maybe we can put in the video where people can go to read more. But to quickly summarize the change, I believe it's in pre-release and it's going to be coming in March 2023. So right now it is early March, but coming this month. That IT administrators will have to turn on the configuration to enable people to optionally set their pronouns in their M365 profiles. So it's off by default. Your IT administrators will have to enable it for your organization, and then end users would basically be able to go into their profile card and choose to add pronouns to their profile, is what I understand.
That's correct. And it takes time, like anything else. In when you make a change, an org-wide setting in a tenant, it will take a few hours before the users will be able to go and add their pronouns in their profiles.
And where you turn it on very specifically is in the M365 Admin Center under Settings, and then Org Settings, and it's on the Security and Privacy tab, and it's a one switch for the entire organization. So you turn it on for everybody at once.
Correct.
It's really easy to turn on.
So I know, Antonio, you and I work for large organizations, and Mike, I know that you do a lot of consulting work for large organizations. And I think a lot of organizations are going to be very interested in this change. And I would be surprised if many of them haven't already been thinking that they want this capability to be available for their employees. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in my world, a couple of clients that were planning to add the pronouns in their Active Directory, it is now an easier way to do it. Just let the actual user go to the profile and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears in people's contact cards. So when you now in Teams, when you hover over a person's name and their contact card appears, it's going to appear right there. I think it's under the person's name, in fact. I think right under their name.
Mm-hmm.
And this information is stored in Exchange mailbox. So it is in your personal Exchange mailbox. Definitely, I don't think you can get access to it from your mailbox. You still have to go to your profile and change it. But that's where the storage of that information is.
And so to the one important thing to recast is for any of the listeners that are saying, oh, I'm excited about this, I want to go in to find my pronouns, and they don't see the ability to add your pronouns. That means that your IT administrators have not enabled this for your tenant. You're going to have to reach out internally inside your organization to ask if that is something that they would enable. And Microsoft did not indicate, at least not in the news posts that I've read. I believe they were very clear in stating that this will have to be turned on by the IT admins, meaning that while they've said more functionality will be coming later this year, they didn't really provide any guidance yet on what that could be, or if this would somehow be enabled by default and things like that. So for right now, you'd have to reach out to your IT leadership or organization to turn on.
That's right. I have seen some concerns from some organizations that have started to look at this around the privacy of this data, because in strictly speaking, when you look at privacy law and you look at compliance regulations related to privacy, pronouns are in fact considered personal information, right? So where this information is stored, how easy is it for it to be accessed or seen? That is a concern for some organizations, because they start to ask, okay, where's this data stored? How do we deal with it? What if someone leaves the organization? What happens to that data? So that doesn't necessarily, I don't think it's a blocker to turning this on, but it is something that larger organizations or organizations that store people's personal information, which many do, need to consider and deal with. I think the good thing, Mike, to what you said, the fact that this is stored in your personal mailbox is important, because then it's stored in the same place as your email address, your name, right? Perhaps your contact info and your signature. So although it's personal information, it's also personal information like all that other personal information. It's likely already being dealt with as part of your privacy regime. So just something to think about there.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm wondering if this would also help with the future content search or rediscovery, if it's required for do anything on searching on pronouns as well, if it's stored in the mailbox.
Right, exactly. That's a good question.
On that note, though,
go ahead.
If an organization, for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason would be. I was reading about it. If the organization decides to turn off the pronouns after turning them back on, it takes 30 days for that data to clear from your mailbox. So it's not an instant thing as well. So it takes a few hours for the users to start using them, and it takes up to 30 days for that data to disappear.
That's right. And it actually deletes the data. So if you turn this on, people start adding their pronouns, because each individual has to go add their pronoun to their contact card, and then your company decides to turn it off. All that pronoun data that people entered actually gets deleted. So if you decide then to turn it on again, people need to add it again.
That's right.
And then the next natural question is, if your organization, if you do turn on these pronouns, how do you let your employees know that they all now have the ability to go and add the pronouns? And if they want to, because again, it's optional. And I didn't read anything where they're going to be prompted to do it. So you're going to want to have a communications or an awareness campaign internally around how to do this. So those people who want to opt in to doing it have know how to do that. And so maybe we should talk a little bit about methodologies that we see that are successful for doing those kind of internal communications campaigns. And I know I have ideas on this one because this gets into the areas that I'm also very passionate about, which is really Viva Suite. So definitely having a Viva Connections home site, especially one where you can elevate news topics. And if it's something that you have a culture of awareness around where people visit your home site in Viva Connections with frequency, that you would have the ability to do some a splash from a news article or an intro perspective there. And then Viva Engage and Yammer, which I know our frequent listeners know I'm a huge proponent of. So for organizations that use Viva Engage, to me, this is a great opportunity to engage with your employees, to have dialogue about it, to be able to have comments and questions, have people share it with others, and maybe even engage with certain communities within your company, whether those be employee resource groups or just by interest communities, and definitely that all company community within Viva Engage, I think would be great places to share that news as well.
I like the idea of having it as a big splash, because when we think about, Viva Connect home sites and your intranet home site, we're often looking for new content or content that's going to grab people's attention to keep it looking fresh, to keep people's, coming back to it, to keep your employees coming back to it, to have interesting articles. And I think this would be a really interesting thing to have on there. Like it's perfect for creating kind of a splash and getting people's attention. So I like that idea in particular.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how this comes around in organizations, because with Microsoft being really, I feel like a focus on inclusion. And I know I've been involved and participated in the Humans of IT blogs and sessions that Microsoft has done for years. And I'm really always proud of the focus that they have on being inclusive. I guess the inspiration behind enabling these pronoun features may come from your IT department, may come from your HR department, may come from your ethics office, may come from an employee resource group or individuals in your organization that really care about it. How do you think that this is going to present itself? Because it could come in a variety of ways.
I think some organizations are just going to turn it on and just let employees find it, right? Because in your contact card, it actually shows there's a plus and a pronouns, and people can easily say, oh, I click there and I can add my pronouns, and then it shows up. So it's a fairly easy thing. So I think some will just turn it on and let people find it. But I think others who are progressive and kind of leaders in this space, this Humans of IT space, are going to do a splash around and are going to communicate it out and encourage people. And I'm fortunate the company that I work for is very much like that. And I think we will probably do a splash and a push around it. I'm involved in many of the internal governance groups within our organization, and there's often a lot of push for these kinds of features, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and I love the way you presented it, because if you are turning on any feature or something like this, you need to really announce it. You really need to let people know it is an org-wide setting. It is a big deal. It is not a small feature here and there that people may not really care about it, but a lot of people care about it these days. So it should be announced. It should be a splash. It should be announced in a way that, yes, go ahead and do it.
It should be treated as a positive thing.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Well, I'm happy we got to talk about this one. We'd like to answer questions, but sometimes it's great to be able to just cover a topic that's, popped up on our radar and is something that we're excited about. And so excited to bring this one to everybody this week. Any final thoughts?
Try it out.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to turn it off.
Happy Microsoft has introduced this, and look forward to us using it and other organizations using it too. I think it helps people just relate better to each other and feel better represented. So it's a very positive thing, I think.
Agreed. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.